Hey there. Ever imagine booting up Assassin's Creed or Far Cry and seeing like a totally different company logo staring back at you?
Well, that's kind of what we're getting at in this deep dive today, because there is a real possibility that Ubisoft, you know, the company behind all those huge franchises, they might actually be changing hands.
Yeah. And, it's not just any old change of ownership. It's Tencent we're talking about, a Chinese gaming giant.
Yeah.
They've already got their hands in a lot of different companies already.
Yeah, this isn't something that's just come out of nowhere. It feels like there's been a build-up to this, right? Ubisoft hasn't exactly been, having the best time lately, have they?
No, not at all. Think about that Star Wars Outlaws launch.
Hmm.
So much hype.
Yeah.
Everyone was looking forward to it, and it just kind of flopped. Sales-wise, I mean.
For a game attached to a huge IP like Star Wars, that's not a good look. It sends ripples through a company when that happens, especially a big company like Ubisoft.
And right on the heels of that, they go and delay Assassin's Creed Shadows, which, that's one of their flagship franchises. And not just a small delay either. They pushed it all the way back to like 2025, I think.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the conversations that must have been happening in those board meetings?
Yeah, I bet those conversations probably weren't helped by the fact that Ubisoft's stock price absolutely tanked after all that, like plummeted to a 10-year low.
Ouch.
Yeah, investors get nervous when stuff like that happens, and suddenly Ubisoft doesn't look so strong anymore. They're looking vulnerable.
Yeah, which kind of makes them the perfect target for a company like Tencent, who you were saying has been like quietly building this gaming empire.
Yeah.
Give us the rundown again. Who are Tencent exactly?
Tencent's huge, man, especially in China. I mean, they're massive over there. But they've actually been strategically investing in gaming companies over here for a while now.
Yeah.
Riot Games, the guys behind League of Legends, Tencent has a stake in them.
Wow.
Epic Games Fortnite, Tencent again.
Oh, really?
They even own a piece of Activision Blizzard.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
So they're not afraid to make moves. But what makes this whole Ubisoft thing different from those other investments?
Well, the rumors are saying that this time Tencent's thinking about taking Ubisoft private,
Okay.
like a full-on buyout.
Wow.
So instead of answering to public shareholders, Ubisoft would become this privately held company.
Okay, hold on. I'm not sure I fully get that. Taking it private. What does that actually mean, like practically, for a company like Ubisoft?
Well, the simplest way to put it is that it gives them a lot more freedom. They're not beholden to the stock market anymore. They don't have to worry about those quarterly earnings reports. It lets them focus on long-term stuff without someone constantly looking over their shoulder.
Interesting. So more freedom, but I guess it also comes with potentially less accountability too, right? Depending on how the deal is structured. It's making me think of those old Ubisoft ads with the tagline like, "We are Ubisoft." Makes you wonder who that "we" is about to become.
That's actually a perfect segue, because it gets even more interesting here. The reports from Bloomberg are saying that Tencent might not be alone in this. Yeah. The Guillemot family, the founders of Ubisoft, they're at the table for these talks too. And they still hold a controlling stake in the company, so what they say goes, pretty much.
Man, this is where we're really starting to get into the weeds here.
Yeah.
So the Guillemots, the ones with the keys to the castle, what are they thinking here? What are some possible scenarios? What could they be hoping to gain from all this?
Well, it's all speculation right now, obviously, but some people think the Guillemots see this as a way to kind of guide Ubisoft through these choppy waters. Tencent has a ton of resources, especially money, and they really know their stuff when it comes to mobile gaming. That could be exactly what Ubisoft needs right now. It'd be like bringing in like a star player, to like help them turn things around.
Right? So it's a strategic partnership.
Yeah.
They weather the storm, come out stronger on the other side. But then there's that other side of it too, right? Like,
Yeah.
This is their company,
Yeah.
They built this whole thing from nothing.
Exactly. This is more than just a business to the Guillemots. It's their legacy, right? So
Yeah.
bringing Tencent in could be a way to make sure Ubisoft survives, even if it means giving up some control.
Okay, so that kind of brings up a whole other set of questions. What happens if they actually go through with it? Like,
Yeah.
what does Ubisoft under Tencent actually look like? What changes for gamers like us?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
Well, we know Tencent's got deep pockets, right? And they're not afraid to spend money to help out the companies they acquire. So we could see Ubisoft suddenly having way more money to play with. Think bigger budgets for game development, maybe even more ambitious projects than they've done before.
So instead of having to scale back after a couple of rough launches, they could actually like double down and go even bigger.
Exactly. Imagine what Ubisoft could do with that kind of money behind them. We could finally see them make that open world pirate game everyone's been asking for.
Oh, man. They'll be amazing.
Right. Or they could really go all in on VR. Who knows?
Okay, so that's the optimistic scenario. What about the downsides? What should people be worried about?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is the potential for creative differences. Ubisoft has their own style, you know?
Right, it's very Western.
Exactly. And Tencent, obviously, they come from a totally different market with its own trends and expectations.
So how do those two design philosophies work together?
Exactly. And then on top of that, you've got to think about the regulatory hurdles they'd have to jump through.
Right.
A Chinese company buying a major Western game publisher, that's going to raise some eyebrows for sure.
Yeah. You know what they say? It's not about the money. It's about...
The game?
Well, no.
Yeah.
It's about the regulators, right?
Yeah.
Are they even going to allow this to happen?
Exactly. And then there's the fans, too. We can't forget about them. Ubisoft's got a really passionate fan base, and they're not going to be shy if they see changes they don't like.
That's for sure. So we've got all these moving parts, all these potential problems. But before we go too far down that road, is there even a chance this whole thing falls apart?
Oh, totally.
Really?
Yeah. Even if Tencent and the Guillemots come to some kind of agreement, they still need the okay from Ubisoft's shareholders. And they might not be too happy about this whole taking the company private idea.
Because they'd be losing out on potential profits down the line.
Exactly. They bought into Ubisoft as a publicly traded company. This changes all that. And then there's always the chance that someone else comes in with a better offer.
So even with all this talk about Tencent, some other company could swoop in and try to buy Ubisoft out from under them?
It's definitely possible. The gaming industry is no stranger to these kinds of power moves.
That's true.
Remember what happened when Microsoft tried to buy Activision Blizzard?
Oh, man.
That whole thing was nuts. It just kept going back and forth.
Every week, there was some new headline, I felt like.
Yeah, it was wild.
And it took forever, too, right? Like, wasn't that going on for like a year or something?
It felt like it. Yeah, a really long time.
Just shows you that these deals are never simple. There's so much more to it than just money.
Oh, yeah. You've got regulations, stakeholders, all kinds of stuff to navigate.
It's a whole thing. Okay, so you were saying that there's a chance this whole thing with Tencent and Ubisoft could still fall apart.
Definitely. A chance, yeah. It's far from a done deal.
Which just makes it even more interesting to watch unfold, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, but let's say, hypothetically, it does happen. Tencent buys Ubisoft.
Yeah.
What happens to, like, Assassin's Creed?
Right.
Or Far Cry? Or what about, like, those smaller games Ubisoft does, like Beyond Good and Evil, stuff like that? What does the future hold for those games?
Well, that is the big question, isn't it? And unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
But what we can do is look at how Tencent has handled things in the past, you know, with other companies they've bought.
Right. So what's their track record like? Do they usually like to come in and completely change everything? Or do they give the studios some freedom?
From what I've seen, they tend to give studios quite a bit of creative control.
Okay.
They're not afraid to step in and offer their expertise, of course, especially when it comes to mobile gaming and, you know, those live service type games.
So are we going to see a future where Assassin's Creed gets like a full-blown mobile game alongside the console and PC versions?
I mean, it's possible, right? Tencent's had a ton of success with that kind of thing in other parts of the world, and they might be thinking, why not try it with Ubisoft's franchises?
It's kind of crazy to think about. Like, this one deal could have ripple effects throughout the entire industry. If one of the biggest Western game companies ends up as part of a Chinese company, I mean, that's what kind of message does that send to everyone else?
It could be the start of a whole new era, right? We might start seeing a lot more partnerships and acquisitions like this one.
Yeah, companies trying to adapt to survive.
Exactly.
It's like we're watching the whole landscape of the gaming world shift in real time.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the end of the day, the most important question for me is this. What does all this mean for the average gamer? Like someone sitting at home with their controller, you know? Just want to play some games.
Right. What does it mean for them? And honestly, it's still too early to say for sure, but I think this whole thing with Ubisoft and Tencent brings up some really important questions about game development, creative control, and how different markets are going to influence the games we play in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Big questions. And like you said, I don't think there are any easy answers. It's a good reminder, though, that just like in video games, the real world can be full of surprises, too, and things can change really quickly.
That's for sure.
So to all of you listening out there, make sure you keep up with this Ubisoft story. Pay attention to the headlines. See what people are saying. It's a really fascinating example of how business, technology, and entertainment can all crash into each other in unexpected ways. And who knows, maybe we'll even revisit this whole thing in a future deep dive. But until then, thank you so much for joining us as we explored this wild story. Don't forget to let us know your thoughts on all this over on our social media. We always love hearing from you.